A long time ago, we did a bunch of N64 wrestling games, except one. Why did it take so long? I don't know, you're gonna have to ask the dog. Oh, wait.
Diggity dog. Breaking. Diggity dog. Diggity dog. Breaking. Diggity dog.
WWF No Mercy, released in the year 2000 for Nintendo 64 from THQ and Aki, and pretty much the final Aki-developed wrestling game for the console as it was nearing its end of days. People have sworn up and down by this game as being one of, if not the greatest wrestling video game ever made, and I'm not really going to argue that claim, primarily because I don't care, but also because this is one of those cases where you hear so much hype about something, and then you eventually get around to playing it, and your biggest takeaway from the whole deal is meh. Part of the deal with this meh feeling I have with No Mercy is through no fault of the game itself, which maintains the same solid gameplay of its predecessors with a few tweaks and changes for the better. And there's no shortage of gameplay options either. In fact, let's dive into that right now. No Mercy has the most match types out of the bunch that comprises World Tour, Revenge, and WrestleMania 2000. You have singles, tag team, triple threat, handicap, battle royal, Royal Rumble, ladders, first blood, anything goes, steel cages, and special referees. Oh my! Now, No Mercy doesn't have Hell in a Cell, and that's fine because neither does SmackDown. And no, that steel cage with a roof doesn't count. Shut up. There's also a more fleshed out career mode in that there's cutscenes that play out. You can now purchase items from the shop zone if desired, though some items will still need to be unlocked via championship mode where you play in various matches and the outcome of these matches determine your progression in the storyline being presented. But if that sort of thing doesn't appeal to you, primarily because the handicap matches you're forced to endure in this mode tend to be bullshit, there's the survival mode, which is essentially a near 100-person Royal Rumble match where the more superstars you eliminate, the more cash you earn to spend in the SmackDown shop on new moves, costumes, superstars, and things of that nature. And if you're really lucky, you'll even come across some hidden wrestlers that you can unlock in this mode. It's a fairly tough challenge to overcome, but the potential rewards might make it worth the risk. For the most part, gameplay in No Mercy is consistent with that of WrestleMania 2000, Revenge, and World Tour. You've got weak and strong strikes and grapples to work with, building up your attitude meter with taunts and balanced moves to eventually use your signature moves. One new thing introduced into gameplay are running grapples, which lets you grab your opponent while running and hit them with a DDT or something instead of something basic like an elbow strike or something, which give matches some added depth. If you've played the previous games in this lineup, No Mercy should be old hat. Newcomers might take some time to familiarize themselves with the controls because every button on that N64 controller has a function, but once you get the hang of it, it actually feels quite smooth and responsive, though there are occasional hiccups along the way. There's a couple issues that hold No Mercy back. First off is the occasional bouts of slowdown that takes place during 4-person matches, which apparently doesn't happen often if you have an expansion pack installed on your N64, which I do, but these things tend to be pretty laggy regardless to the point that it will affect control responsiveness to a certain degree. There's also an apparent save glitch that occasionally occurs and wipes out all your saves, but apparently this only applies to certain versions of the game. Still worth a mention just in case. As is usually the case with these early wrestling titles of this ilk, AI tends to be problematic at times. Set the difficulty low and it's practically a cakewalk. Set it higher and it'll counter everything under the sun and leave you for dead. And also when playing the championship mode, handicap matches, not in your favor in more ways than one. Yeah, no, not a fan. Despite these quibbles, No Mercy is still a fun time. It continues what began with World Tour and pretty much evolved the formula to perhaps its finest form. Thing is, with this series at least, all these games are near excellence because the gameplay is just that good even without the later additions. That's why when I play No Mercy, that the game that's supposed to be the greatest of all time, or so I've been told, I generally feel like, meh, because it's really no different from what came before, and what came before was already great. So it basically boils down to content. If you got a wide variety of match types, the roster is perhaps the most definitive of the bunch in terms of representing that attitude era of WWF programming. Well, with a couple exceptions. I mean, there's no Big Show in this game, but hey, Stevie Richards made a cut, so that's something, I guess. Potato? I tried. No Mercy retains the overall visual presentation of WrestleMania 2000, but adds just enough polish that the graphics generally look a touch better, quite possibly the best I've seen one of these games look in the series. There are some archaic designs that are just funny in retrospect, the scanned-on faces for example, and some models that are prone to some occasional bits of clipping, more so with some of the more outlandish creative wrestlers you'll end up creating, or the edits that you'll make to the pre-existing roster and their 4 costumes apiece, all contained within a meager 32 megabyte N64 cart that used to sell for like, what, 50, 60 bucks a pop back in the day? Imagine that. But on a whole, the superstars look pretty slick and animate pretty good. They've done a tremendous job recreating the various pay-per-view sets, and some of the backstage areas are pretty good too. Again, it's nothing that we haven't seen in this series before, save for maybe the backstage stuff, but it's probably the slickest looking game of the bunch, save for the occasional slowdown that plagues the game with the 4-player bits. Much like the previous game, you've got superstar entrances. Well, almost. You've got the actual theme music and it sounds low quality and grainy, but it's there. You have a brief slideshow of your Titantron playing on screen, and then the wrestlers walk down the ramp and maybe do a quick pose. It's not much, but it's more than what you got on PlayStation, and that's key. You even get pyro for some entrances. Outside of the WWF stuff, the rest of the audio is your usual synth stuff, though No Mercy does have some catchier menu music, but the custom tracks for your custom wrestlers obviously lack that extra oomph that the actual themes have. Sound effects are alright, along with some brief vocal snippets, not much else to add to that. Overall, WWF No Mercy is a tremendous wrestling game and a series of tremendous wrestling games that easily provides the best representation of a cherished era of mainstream professional wrestling that no other game before or since could ever truly encapsulate without compromise or revisionism. Yes, there's a couple things that hold the game back from achieving peak perfection, as it were. This would be a good place to insert your tired "would have been 6 stars if this had the Tokyo Dome" meme if you insist on that, because nobody's going to get that. But there's also plenty to like about the game if you're into this sort of thing. Stacked roster, good amount of customization, good variety of match types, fleshed out championship mode, so to speak, and a challenging survival mode of sorts are some of the highlights of No Mercy. Again, people swear up and down by this game, but personally, you could make a case for this, or Revenge, or WrestleMania 2000, and they'd all be equally valid. Because that's simply how that damn good this series happens to be. And that, as they say, is the bottom line. I consider this video over.